Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of software testing behavioral interview question and answers. And in this part, I'm going to discuss or cover another 5 very important behavioral interview questions which are listed on the screen below. So the first question that I'm going to discuss is tell me something about yourself. Very common, and most of the time, in all the interviews, you will definitely be asked this particular question. Tell me something about yourself or tell me something about your professional background. So the answer will be similar in any of the cases that the interviewer wants to know something about yourself, and I'll discuss what and how you need to answer. The second question that I'm going to discuss is what are your strengths and weaknesses, right? Very commonly asked interview question as well. Third question that I'm going to discuss is what is the last book that you have read. Fourth is what steps do you take to improve yourself, right? Another behavioral interview question. And then fifth question that I'm going to discuss is what are your hobbies, interests outside work, okay? Outside work. So there is a purpose behind any of these questions. So let's quickly go ahead and get started and understand what and how you need to answer these behavioral interview questions whenever you are being asked any of these, okay? So let's go to the first question. So the first question, tell me something about yourself. Okay. Now tell me something about yourself. What interviewer wants to know is basically a couple of things about you, right? Basically your professional background and what exactly have you been doing and why you are kind of here and want to be interviewed for this particular position and your interest level basically, right? So if you're a fresher or you are an experienced candidate, divide the answer into 3 key parts. Okay. The first part is greetings, thank you, and your full name, right? So when somebody says, tell me something about yourself, so obviously you greet the person even though they know your name, but still it is good to start with greetings. For example, if it is morning, good afternoon, or good evening if it is afternoon or evening, and then start with a thank you note, right? So good morning, thank you for providing me this opportunity to talk about myself and my qualifications, right? So important thing here is that a brief about yourself and your qualifications. Basically the interviewer wants to know your qualifications, not your personal background, your date of birth, your village, or basically your parents. No, they are not interested in any of that. They want to understand how good fit are you or what exactly you bring on the table for this particular job. Okay, so first is greetings, thank you, and your full name. So for example, how you are going to answer this: good morning sir, or good morning sirs and madams, thank you for providing me this opportunity to talk about myself and my qualifications. My name is Manish Verma. The second part that you need to go ahead with, why you are qualified, right? So the second thing they want to know is why you are qualified for that particular position. So you can divide this answer in 3 parts. So first one is greetings, second one is why you are qualified for that particular job. So if you are a fresher, you can start something: I am a recent engineering graduate from your college, whatever college you are from, with CGPA, whatever CGPA. Okay, if you're a bright and sharp student, obviously you have a great CGPA, you add that. Otherwise you skip that. Okay, if it is not a great achievement that you want to showcase, then you can skip that. So you can say I am a recent engineering graduate from this particular college. I have recently completed software testing and automation course from this particular training institute. My major project in college was your project details, right? And where I have contributed extensively in development and testing of the application, whatever project you have done, right? And then from there you developed an interest in software testing during the college project and decided to pursue the testing career, right? So this gives a clarity to the interviewer that yes, you are not someone trying for a software testing job just for the sake of trying it and thinking that it is easy, you will get job easily in software testing, but you have some sort of a background and you have done your own research and you are actually interested into software testing job, right? So this answer will help you to basically put your thoughts or basically your experience in a particular way, which is helpful for you to get into that particular job, right? So whenever you are going for a particular job out of the college as a fresher, you need to show something as a background that why you actually want to pursue that particular career, right? So if you are an engineering graduate from mechanical engineering, you need to manipulate this answer. You need to basically, modify this answer accordingly, and why exactly you as a person really want to join the software testing field, right? Now don't specify that just for money, right? Not specifying that I want to join for the money. Yeah, money is obviously in any job, you will obviously get the money, right? But there need to be a basis or some sort of, thought process, your interest behind joining that particular field. I want to become a pilot, but why? What motivates me to become a pilot, right? I want to become a developer. What motivates me to become a developer? So something you need to think about and modify this answer accordingly, but most of it you can basically use by tweaking it a little bit here and there. Now, if you are an experienced candidate already working in software testing and you have been asked this question, so you can say, I'm a software test analyst at a particular company, working for this particular project. I have over 4 years of experience in testing complex software applications. I am well versed with, whatever keywords have been mentioned in the software testing job application that you are applying for, right? So like test planning, designing, test execution, reporting, defect lifecycle, automation, UI automation, API automation, and many other skill set which I have elaborated in my resume, right? So this will answer the second part, which is why you are qualified for that particular job. Okay. Now the third part that you need to include in this particular answer is why you are there for the interview, right? Why exactly you are there for the interview. Okay. So as a fresher, what you can say is, with my acquired skills and passion for software testing, I wish to work for a leading organization like yours. Okay. And I am confident that I can make a positive impact. Okay. Now this shows that you have done a little bit research about the organization, what sort of testing projects they have, what sort of work they do, right? So doing a bit of research, going to their website, reading a little bit about them will give you a fair bit of idea what exactly they are. You can specify very key points wherein, say, for example, they have got some award recently, right? So you can specify leading organization like yours, and I have recently got to know you guys have been awarded, this a leader in this particular category. So it will be an honor to join leaders like your organization, right? So as a fresher, you can say that. As an experienced person, something similar. So although you are happy, so you have to mention, right, why you are moving out of your current job, right? Because you are already employed and you are trying to search for the second job, or you want to move on. So you can start with, although I am happy with my current role, I feel it's the time to move on for more challenging opportunity or role which this particular position for which you are interviewing, offers, right? I can assure you that I can bring in a lot of value to the role and organization. My prior experience and skill set enables me to perform well and excel in this particular job. Okay. Now these three things, if you remember, right? So greetings, thank you, and your full name, your qualification, and why you are there for interview, that will help you to answer this particular question very efficiently. And because this is the first question, it is kind of, it sets the overall level, basically, it makes yourself shine overall, that you start very well in the interview, and it builds your confidence, right? So if you're able to answer this particular question well, then rest of the things will fall really well in the interview. Okay. So let's go ahead and read this particular whole answer in a sequence, right? So for example, step 1, okay, so good morning. Thank you for providing me this opportunity to talk about myself and my qualification. My name is Manish Verma. I'm a software test analyst at IBM. So for example, working for a particular project. I have over 4 years of experience in software testing and testing complex softwares. I'm well versed with test designing, test planning, test execution, UI automation, API automation, and many more other skill sets that I have elaborated in my resume. Although I'm happy with my current role, but I feel it's the time to move on and get or fetch for or look for more challenging opportunity that this particular position offers. I can assure you that my current or the current skill set that I have will be really beneficial and will enable me to perform and excel in this particular job, right? So overall, be natural, right? It's not like you just, it's good to go through the script, but practice it, right? And when you will practice, stand in front of the mirror, practice it so that you are more natural rather than the when you do or when you go through the script. Sometimes you are not the interview might be able to see that you are not speaking naturally, right? So it is important that you are speaking naturally and things are actually relevant for that particular role, and whatever you are speaking is actual you, right? It is not something that you are just prepared from the script. Okay, so change this accordingly as per your skill set and your experience. If you are an experienced person or if you are a fresher, change it accordingly as per your background and your projects. Okay, so that's how you are going to answer this particular question. I have taken a lot of time on this particular question because this is really important and will be asked in every interview that you go. Most of the interview, I mean, I don't see that this question is skipped in any of the interviews, right? So prepare well for this. So the next question, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Okay, very important interview question as well and very frequently asked as well. Okay, so in the strengths, what you can use. So in the strengths, usually you use the terms that are relevant, okay, for that particular job. Okay, so you can say, I practice defensive pessimism. Okay, now as a software testing or as a software tester, defensive pessimism is important. Defensive pessimism. Why? Because if you're not pessimistic that there might be errors or there might be failures in this particular application, you won't be able to figure out the failures well. If you think everything will be fine, then everything will look fine when you start, testing, right? Or when you go through the documentation. So that defensive pessimism is very important. Okay, so you can say, I practice defensive pessimism. I'm creative. I have good analytical skills. I'm a team player, right? I'm customer centric. I think I can put myself in the customer's shoes and I can think from customer's perspective, what customer might be doing with this particular application, why we are building this application, what problem it is going to solve for that particular customer, right? I'm an active listener, very important for software tester, right? So I listen to what is being said and then I do analysis, ask right question. I am flexible, right? I'm flexible to, if required on the releases, I can work little late, right? So flexibility in jobs is really important. I'm enthusiastic about the new stuff, new technology. I'm hardworking. I'm reliable, right? So hardworking is mentioned twice, but yeah. So these are some of the good terms that you can use that are your strengths. Okay. Now in the weaknesses, okay, what are your weaknesses? So everyone has weaknesses, right? You don't say, I don't have any weaknesses. That is the first and foremost blunder that people do in the interview. I don't have any weaknesses. That means if you have answered like this, I don't have any weaknesses, that means you think that you are a perfect human being, and there is no perfection. Okay. There is no perfect human being. There is nothing called perfect, right? So everyone has weaknesses. If you haven't realized that you have weaknesses, that shows that you haven't been mature yet, right? So you have to close your eyes, think about what are some of your weaknesses, okay? But do not mention the weaknesses, the big weaknesses that can hamper your selection for that particular position, right? So some of the safe weaknesses that you can use are overly focused, right? In a way, overly focused is good for software testers, right? So overly focused or too detailed oriented. Okay, you are very detailed oriented. So even though it is weakness, right? Because if you go into too many details and just stuck on that one particular problem, you won't be able to proceed further with the next steps. So even though this is not very good, but sometimes it is good in the testing profile, right? So these are some of the weaknesses that you can mention which won't impact your selection, right? It is basically, and you can say you have a fear for public speaking. Obviously, software testing job doesn't require public speaking skills, right? It's good if you have good public speaking skills. You will be able to do showcases, etc. But that you can again develop when you are in the project, right? As a software tester, your job is not to do public speaking, it is more to test the application, right? So if you have a weakness around public speaking or fear of speaking in public, that is not going to hamper your job application and selection, right? And then you can also say that you are not an expert programmer, right? Now, as a tester, it is not expected that you should be an expert programmer. So you can say, I do have a automation skill. If you have an automation skill, and I can do automation framework and automation script, but I am not an expert programmer because my job doesn't require it, right? So these are some of the safe weaknesses that you can use when somebody asks what are your strengths and weaknesses, especially in the software testing interviews. Okay, so this is about your strengths and weaknesses. Now moving on to the third question of part 2. What is the last book you have read? Okay, very important question. Now, this is also important to understand whether you have a reading habit, whether you read something or not, whether you upskill yourself or not, right? So it doesn't mean that you have read a book last week or last month. Whatever last book you have read, that's okay. Okay. Now, if you have read some book 5 years ago and haven't read anything yet, that means, you are not upskilling yourself, right? So if you have read something 2-3 months ago, and if it's something related to academic, a book, that's okay, right? You can mention that. So mostly for software testing, I would recommend choosing a career related book if possible, right? Or if not career related, any book that you have read, but which you can relate to the job description. So which has some sort of learning that you can say, yeah, I've read this book, even though it is, a story book, but then as part of that story, this is what I learned, which is basically relevant to software testing job, right? So mostly what I do is I mention the software testing books that I have read. Okay. So you mention the book title and explain briefly about the book, second point, and then mention why you liked it, and then relate it with the job description. Okay, that is important, because reading any book and then don't having not able to relate or no relation with the testing or your job profile doesn't make any sense for the interviewer, right? Interviewer wants to know, do you have reading habits? And if you have reading habits, what you have read last. Okay, so that you can mention. And even though if you haven't read, a specific book, you can, if you follow any blog or anything, you can mention that as well. Yeah, even I read story books, but then I follow this blog, and then from there I have read all of these things which are relevant to software testing profile. So basically, as an example, you can say an answer will look like, recently I read a book, Lessons Learned in Software Testing by Ken Kanner. The book has helped me to cultivate tester mindset and how we should be approaching and managing testing for any software products. If I'm given a chance at your esteemed organization, the knowledge I acquired from this book can be extremely helpful for your organization, right? So basically you are selling yourself as well. Okay, don't be shy to sell yourself, because you have built a skill, you have read something, and based on that reading, because Lessons Learned in Software Testing is a very nice book, and from that particular book, whatever skills you have acquired by reading that book will be really helpful for any of the project that you go to, right? So if I have read this book and I'm specifically mentioning this, right, so that is going to really help the projects that I'm going to join. So this is highly relevant because it's a testing book, so highly relevant for software testing interviews. So you can specify something like that. Now moving on to the next question. What steps do you take to improve yourself? Okay, another very important behavioral interview question. So why interviewer wants to know this? What steps you take to improve yourself? Because are you a person who is just happy with whichever state you are, okay, and don't do any effort to upgrade or upskill yourself or improve yourself every next day, right? Because the basic tendency or the overall, if we talk about the people who really want to grow, right, they upskill, they improve day by day, right? And every day they do something. So interviewer wants to know, as a software tester, you need to improve, because there will be technology change, there will be new things that will be coming up. Are you going to upskill? Are you open to upskilling, right? So that is what interviewer wants to know as part of this particular question. So whether you take those steps or what steps you take to improve yourself. So what you can say is, first thing is self-reflection, right? So self-reflection is very important. Looking where you are at. Okay, see what exactly you are as of today. Okay, and self-reflection helps you to understand what your skill set is, how you are as a person. Okay, what can you do to learn, or basically what motivates you. So all of these things will be very helpful in self-reflection. Okay, now meditate. So how you will be able to self-reflect, right? So I take steps. So I self-reflect, I meditate, right? So when you meditate, when you close your eyes and you think deep within, you will get all the answers yourself. Okay, so if I have to improve myself, I'll start meditating, I'll self-reflect, I'll sit quietly and think, what am I today, what skill set I have, where do I lack, what I need to do next in order to fill those gaps step by step, right? So I'll do self-reflection, I'll meditate, I set realistic goals. So if I'm a person who improves every day, right? So in order to improve myself, these are the steps that I take, right? I'll set realistic goal that every day I'll read 3 pages of this particular book, which is going to help me to learn this skill set, right? Or every day I'm going to watch 2 tutorial videos of this particular automation tool and practice. Okay, so I set realistic goals, not that in a month I'll complete 5 books, right? So do not set unrealistic goals. So I set unrealistic goal. Next point, I take small steps. Okay, so taking small steps is important, but taking steps every day is important, right? So if you start to run, right, you can run for 30 minutes max, 40 minutes if you are marathon runner, but then you'll start, you can't sustain that pace for long. Okay, so if you're taking small steps day by day, right, then you will be able to reach your goal even by taking small steps. So 4th point, I'll take small step, or I take small steps to improve myself. So then I remain with the friends who encourage me. Okay, so this is another very important point. Do you realize your company? Okay, are you a sort of person who can understand what sort of company you are in right now? Okay, now this particular point is very important, because sometimes we are so close to our friends, so-called friends, and when you are in that company, you don't realize that you are not actually with your friends who are your real friends, right? Who encourage you, but you are with people who always demotivate you, right? So you have to understand, if you have those kind of people around you who demotivate you, who try to show that they are up and you are down, right? Who try to show themselves that they are ahead in each and everything in technology, and you don't know anything. Stay away from those sort of people. Stay with the people who encourage you to learn and don't demotivate you in what you do, right? So that's another very important step that comes from self-reflection. When you meditate, when you self-reflect, you will understand who are your real friends and who are not your friends. And it's good to be alone rather than to be in the bad company, right? So that is very important mantra as well. So mention this point. And then take care of my health, very important. So your physical health and mental health is also very important. So these are some of the steps that you can mention. So what steps do you take to improve yourself? So in order to improve myself, I self-reflect, I meditate, I set realistic goals of learning, right? And then whatever realistic goals I have set to achieve something, whether it's learning or project or whatever I want to do, whether it's part of the project or not, I will take small steps to achieve those goals. I try most of the time to be with friends who really encourage me, right? And not demotivate me in my goal achievement. Okay. And I take care of my health. It's physical health and mental health. This shows that you respect yourself, right? You are not the person, because if you respect yourself, everyone in the world is going to respect you. Okay. An interviewer also wants to understand that what sort of person you are, right? Do you know yourself? Do you set realistic expectations? Do you take care of yourself? Because if you will take care of yourself, then you will be able to take care of the others as well. So these are some of the key things that are important when interviewer asks what are the steps you take to improve yourself. Okay. Now the last question of the part 2. What are your hobbies and interests outside work? Okay, so don't say that you do not have any hobby or interest outside work. You are only a workaholic person, right? Everyone has hobbies and interest, and if you don't have, please cultivate some, because holistic growth and development is important, right? Work is absolutely important, but overall holistic development, your life, enjoyment, everything is important as well. So as a person within an organization, what hobbies and interests you have that you bring in, that might help others to make the environment light, right? Because work or just studies make, there is a old saying, right? So all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? So that is very true in the office culture as well. So if you do not have any hobbies, interests, that will make the work culture really toxic. Okay, and if there are all the people like that, it will be toxicity all around. People won't be paying interest on their physical and mental health, and it will be really converting to a toxic workplace. So if somebody asks in the interview, what are your hobbies and interests outside work, whatever your hobbies and interests are, you mention that, and make sure that each hobby you can basically correlate, right? So for example, traveling, walking is my hobby. Sports, any sports that you enjoy playing. Okay, writing, music, painting, anything that you want to do when you have some time. Cooking, gardening, anything you can specify, right? Whichever hobby you have, this is not the full list. If there is something else that is your hobby, you can just put it there, but then make sure to mention that walking or traveling is my hobby, right? Traveling is my hobby. Why? Because it gives me immense pleasure to be at the new places, to see how different cultures are, to meet different people and understand their perspectives. And when I know new people, new culture and their perspective, that opens my thinking in a broad way, and I can think in a way from more customer centric way, from different cultural perspective as well, right? So that helps me in my job even more. Similarly, for walking or sports, you can mention cooking, that it is kind of a meditation to me, right? I am able to self-reflect. I can, when I'm cooking, when I'm gardening, I can self-reflect. When I'm walking, I can self-reflect and see where I'm at today. What can I do to improve myself? So that gives me that self-reflection and thinking ability during that time, which I then come back and implement. That relieves me and helps me in my overall job altogether, right? So try to mention that connectivity with your hobby, with your job, okay? And that will give you an edge and will absolutely make sure that you crack any of the behavioral interview rounds, okay? So that's the last question of part 2. In part 3, I'm going to cover another 5 software testing behavioral interview questions. So that's all for this particular video. Please do share and subscribe, and thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.